Hello, students. Welcome back. I hope it's been a great summer. This is your first video in Programming for Apps 2, although I suspect many of you watching will not be from our Apps 2 class and will be from other classes, but that's okay. This is a tutorial on how to get up and running in PHP kind of as quick as possible. So here's the deal with PHP. The reason you're using it is to interact with a database. If you're using it for other stuff, you're probably doing something wrong. It was invented to interact with databases, so stick to that. You use PHP with a combination of SQL. SQL is actually the language you use to interact with your database, and PHP is kind of the thing that interfaces between that language and your JavaScript and the rest of your code. But that's okay, you're going to see both. The good news is they're all really easy. You can find whatever you need online as far as syntax goes. It's really basic and it's not complicated. What is complicated is setting it up. So this is going to do most of that for you. Now I'm assuming a couple things here. First of all, I'm assuming that you have your own GoDaddy hosting server, or any hosting server really, but the thing is these are all slightly different depending on what you set up. So bear with me if it's not exactly what you're seeing. Okay, and I'm assuming that hosting plan has a domain with it that you have access to, as well as PHPMyAdmin installed on your domain. So we're going to assume all that's true, and we're going to go ahead and this is your main hosting screen. We're going to go to databases first and get kind of set up here. So I'm going to click on MySQL. Now you will all have a screen that looks like this. It's not going to include these, but you can add one. So I'm going to pop this window up here. Okay, I'm actually not going to completely fill this out because I don't want to add an additional database to my domain. But you can see what it is. There's friendly name, there's database name and username, this is important, and there's password, this is important as well. Okay. What I want you to do is when you set these up, take these two values, and I know you're probably going to be rolling your eyes at me because I would do the same thing, but please, please, please just write them down. They're a royal pain in the butt to get back if you forget them. Okay, you also want to write these down and just store it in your Google Docs somewhere for now. Of course, if this was real life and you had sensitive information on these things, you don't want to store them on Google Docs. You want to store them securely, but we'll talk about that later. But please write them down. You need to access these when you're coding. The rest of this is straightforward. They got some additional options. You don't need those. And you set up. Okay, so you're going to set yours up, and I'm going to go into one of my databases. You have to type in that username and password here. And you'll see this. So this is PHPMyAdmin. It makes administering your databases super easy. Now before you actually put anything into your database, you have to set it up. So we're actually going to go ahead and do that. So here's my database that I have. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new table for us to play with. Okay, so to create a new table, you can go to here where it says create new table on database Mr. MChem. And I'm going to call this, I don't know, we'll call this coding tests. Alright, so that's the name of the table. And it's going to have a number of fields. Now fields are like columns. So in this table, this thing up here is actually a table. So this table has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, check marks, 8 fields. You can always change these. I'm going to start out with 2, 3, start with 3 fields. Go. Alright, you'll get a screen like this. This is where you set up what your fields are going to be. So I'm going to have, let's say, it's going to be of type text. These types, they're all kind of crazy. The only thing that you really have to be worried about is when you get started is just make sure that your first column here is your index column. It just is going to make your life really easy. You need an index, which is just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, counting up by ones forever. But you need one. Otherwise, your table is going to get all messed up. So you can make that an int, and you can say that this is index. That's the name of the field. Length or values. I actually never fill this in, but there's a reason you should. I'm going to skip it though. Collation. This has to do with how the data is stored. Again, until you guys start storing large amounts of data, this really doesn't wind up mattering. So you can just leave it blank. It'll select the best one. Attributes. Again, this has a lot of information that you won't need to fill out. Not null or null. This means that you can either when you create a new row, you can either start with the you can either require the field to be filled, which is not null, or you can have it be optional, which is null. I keep everything not null because you don't want to have blank columns, but it's up to you. Default. This is like if nobody fills it. So if it's created and the index is blank, what's it default to? So that's useful in some cases. This one is not a case because what we're going to actually select for the index is extra auto increment. This means that every time you make a new row, it's just going to automatically increment it from the last one. Alright, cool. Next thing we need is first name. I'm just going to make a simple form here that inputs data into your database. And first name is of type text, length, all this stuff you just leave blank. And you go like that forever. Email. Right? I'm just going to leave all that stuff blank. Oh, looks like I forgot a field, so we're going to add one field. Look at that. Sender. Text. Cool. Save. Alright, so our database is all set up here. Now it says indexes, no index defined. And we need to basically tell the program which column our index column is going to be. So we're going to create an index on one column. We're going to say go. And we're going to say that index is this one. There you go. Okay, now we know. Now the program knows that the primary index of the table is this first column. Super duper. All right, let's do some coding. So I've already done a little bit of work. I've gotten a really basic form set up. So what I actually want to do is I want to use this to collect people's first name and their email addresses, like when I'm out, because I don't like business cards. I just leave them on my dresser. In fact, if I had a camera that I could show you with, I would just take a picture and show you the stack of people's business cards sitting on my dresser, but I'm not going to. So what I want to do is I want to collect their first name and their email address and store it in a database so that I can work with it later. And I made this for both myself and Mr. Raffelli. So this is just the form. It doesn't actually do anything yet because it's not hooked up, but let's take a quick peek. Pretty standard Bootstrap stuff here. I just included some CSS. But the rest of it is all Bootstrap that you guys are all familiar with. Here are your Bootstrap includes, as well as the JavaScript for this particular project. And then I have just some alerts that are there for later potentially. And then this form that you guys are, again, all familiar with. And finally at the bottom is a button that when you click it, it runs a JavaScript function. Alright, all this stuff you've seen before, nothing crazy. I've also got two other files. I've got signup.js, which has just got that one function ready to go. I've also got signup.php, which we'll get to in a second. Right. So the way that I do this, and I think this is the best way because it makes sense from both a design perspective and a building perspective, is I always call my PHP from my JavaScript. There are a lot of people who don't do this. Is it the fastest way to call PHP? No, it is not. So if you're building something that is really, really crunched for time, you can actually call PHP stuff or embed it in your HTML. But I don't do that because this makes a lot more sense to me. To me, whenever I click something in my apps, I'm probably going to run a function that's going to interface with the database. It makes sense to do it asynchronously, which means it doesn't hold up the rest of the application while I perform that task. Okay, and asynchronous calls, as you already know, are done with AJAX, which you have seen before. So we're going to go ahead and write an AJAX function that that runs our signup.php. So let's go ahead and do that. I've got some code saved that I was working on here, so forgive me. Where are we? Oh, we're just going to get rid of that. Alright, so here's our basic AJAX function. It's type get. Now, when you are doing this with a PHP database, it's pretty important to pay attention to these types. Get will obviously get data from your database, but we actually want to set or put in this case. So I'm actually going to say set. It makes it a little bit different. Alright. We'll leave it like that for now, though. Or, sorry, no. We'll say set. There's minute differences between them that are important to know in a future, but not right now. So there's the set. The URL we'll get to in a second. Data we need, but we'll leave it blank. And then success, of course, is the function that it runs when the PHP is done. Now, you guys have seen this when you were talking to Facebook APIs and Twitter and things like that. It's because they use the same stuff. Their servers in PHP are responding just the same way that you're about to write it. So it's really nothing different. We have a callback function that takes one argument, which is the data that the PHP sends back, which oftentimes is just something like, it was successful. Okay, and we're just going to log that data. All right, the last thing we have to handle here is the URL. So we need to specify what this variable is. So we're going to say variable URL equals HTTP. It's on my website. Blah 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 /signup. Let me just make sure that's not the actual one, because if it is, I'm in trouble. No, it's not. Okay, it's gonna be sign up. Sign up. All right, so there's that. Cool. And we need to, in this directory, we're looking for /signup.php. Okay, so this is going to call our PHP function. Now, you can send non-sensitive information in your URL request. So you're obviously not going to send it in, like credit card information. That seems silly. But if you're just looking to send, the first name and the email address of someone, it's fine. And you can do that as follows. You go question mark, and then you do the variable name. So let's say, I'm going to say first name, FN, equals, and we'll do plus. Looks like we need a variable first name in JavaScript. So the first name is actually going to be the value of the first name text box. Okay, so in jQuery that's money sign first name dot val. Okay, back to our URL. Okay, so FN equals first name, and if we want multiples, we can do and. You can say email equals, you guessed it, we need another one. Let's see what the email ID was. Looks like it was, I'm just going to copy it. Again, you can call it whatever you want, it doesn't matter. Plus email. Alright, and that's the URL. There you go. Alright, now before we do anything as far as AJAX calls, let's just make sure this URL is as we are expecting it to be. Right? We don't want to call, it's very important that you do this when you're doing PHP because things can get messed up like really fast. And when I say really fast, I mean really fast. You don't want to go into your PHP not confident that your JavaScript is completely working. So we're going to go ahead and ooh, I might have messed up. we're going to go ahead and test this out real quick, but first I have to save this to the right spot. Alright, cool. So let's open this up in our browser. Oh, it's going to open it in Safari. Come on. We're not waiting for that. We're busy. We're busy here. Silly. Alright, so here are the alerts. They're actually not hiding automatically because I took away the code that told them to. So here we go. We're going to say .alert.hide. Voila. Okay, so we're going to say Matt. We're going to give him my email. And let's go ahead and inspect element because it's going to be logging this for us. Theoretically, my computer. Please pray for my computer. Let's see. Let's see. Is this exactly how we want it? It says fn equals undefined. That's not good. But the email is working. So the email is working, but the first name is not. I must have done something wrong. ID equals first name. Oh, it's all lowercase. Rust. The rust is real. Okay, cool. We'll just make sure that works. That's not a valid email, but we'll get to that later. Oh, interesting. Oh. Oh boy. Oh boy. Cool. Alright, so is that right? Looks like it's all set. Great. Alright, so now we can uncomment our AJAX call here. And we can go ahead and switch to our PHP to check out what's going on. Alright, so we have all these things going on here. Here's PHP. Alright, so let's look at a basic structure. You get caret question mark PHP on your first line. Always need that. Next part, you need to connect to your database. Okay, this is where your database address, which we'll get in a second, goes, your username, and your password goes. I'm not going to be showing you mine because that would be stupid of me, but you need to put yours here. And then in your address, what you do is you go to your database here. Let's see if I can remember how to do this. It's not operations. Silly. You go to your database and one sec. Your hosting details back in this window and click Actions and click Details. Okay, at the bottom is going to be a hosted name, host name for your database, and that's the one you want to pick up. And you paste it there. And then your username and your password go here. Okay. Next part is you're selecting the database you're going to access. So we're selecting Mr. Mchem, or die just means like otherwise quit the function, but that's okay. So this is my database name that you can find on the left-hand side over here. Alrighty then. And once you do these two, you're in, really. This is just a reusable email validation function that I use whenever I'm doing email stuff, so I'm just going to leave that there, but it's not important. The rest of this is going to be important, so let's check this out. We're going to delete this. Okay. So what we want to do here is we want to input these values that we've collected in this form into our database. So what we need to do first is we need to kind of collect them out of the form. So here's how it works. With PHP, your variables start with money sign. So we're going to say first name equals, and because what we did was a set function, which may or may not even work. Hold on a second. Let me just solve that. Sorry, it's post. I was working with something before that's set, so it's post. Okay, so in your JavaScript, change your type to post. Okay, so back over here, first name. To get that out of the URL, it's pretty easy. Do money sign, capital, like that, underscore, bracket, and then finally the name of the variable that you sent. In this case, first name was fn. And I'm pretty sure it's, oh no, you know what, it's like this. I don't know. Every time I look at it, I change my mind. Hold on. Silly me. Okay. So there's first name, email, equals, underscore, post, bracket, email. Because that's matching up to these variable names that we sent in the URL. Alright, and we also need to check who sent the request here, because I have that as something I wanted to do. So in our JavaScript function, we need to quickly check whether those radio buttons are selected. And luckily, I have a function to do that. So let me just go get it. One sec. Mat radio is checked. So this is just checking to see if the radio button is actually checked. We're going to have a variable called person, and that's Matt. If John is checked, it's John. These IDs, you can bet, come straight from the radio buttons right here. Right? Pretty straightforward. And we also want to send this information, so we're going to add to our URL. And person equals, just like that. Cool. And then we'll go ahead and get person out of the post request. Alright, so hopefully, if all is going according to plan, we are sending PHP the values of these, and we can actually just quickly test that it's working by using the echo function. What echo does is it tells PHP to shoot back to wherever the whatever's running it. It's telling it to shoot it back to the callback. So in this Ajax function right here, this is calling the PHP, and it's got our function with data as an argument. Whatever you put in echo right here, let's say echo first name, that's going to be the data argument, and we're logging it in our JavaScript. So it actually allows us to communicate back and forth, which is why I like doing this. Here's the only catch. This has to be online to work. Okay, your PHP, you can't run it locally. It will not work. That's why it's useful to have your GoDaddy accounts ready to go. That's why some people use Code Anywhere, but this needs to be online to work. We're going to go ahead and upload this, and we're going to check it out. Make sure you upload it, your URLs match right here. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Give me a sec. Files, index just my basic CSS file, JavaScript, and PHP to the sign up folder in my domain here, and I've navigated to it, slate-tabs.com/signup, which is no longer active. Sorry. Right. And sure enough, if we go ahead and test this out, what we're looking for is we want to see if what we've echoed is actually logged. We just want to see first name logged. So if that happens, then we're in business. This does need to be an actual email address now. Let's see, submit. So sure enough, it's not anything that we're doing too wrong. It's just that this Ajax call needs to be of type get, because when you send a post request, you need to send something in the data parameter for it to work. And we're not doing that. We're not sending anything sensitive. We're just doing this quickly. So we'll change type to get, and then instead of underscore post, these need to be underscore get to match the type of request. Right, so there you go. That's that. And if you go ahead and save everything and upload it, we're echoing out the first name. So let's go see if it works. Sure enough, there's the first name. All right, so that's a lot for one for one video here, so we'll stop for now. Now this does not input anything quite into the database quite yet. We need to do a little bit more work to get it to that point, but we're going to hold off on that until next time. So right now you should be able to set up your database on your domain. You should have a basic idea of how to begin interacting with it, and next time we'll finish it by showing you how to finish interacting with it. Until then, sayonara!